Psalm 26, vindicate me, O Lord, for I have walked in my integrity. I have also trusted in the Lord. In the ESV it's rendered, I've trusted in the Lord without wavering. As we've seen previously, the full range of emotions are expressed. His fears, as well. Is this not a bold statement to make? And what else can I add? David, it's similar here. Vindicate me, O Lord, for I've walked in my integrity. I've trusted in the Lord without wavering. What does that mean? How is David's statement here different from that of the rich young ruler? Well, first of all, unlike the rich young ruler, David recognizes in verse 11 his need for redemption and grace. Redeem me, be gracious to me. Sinless men do not need redemption and grace. David's not claiming here that he's sinless, but that his conscience is clean before God. Secondly, David's piety is not simply external and ritualistic, but internal. His actions are not the means by which he's trying to manipulate. His actions flow out of a real love for God. Remember, the rich ruler when Jesus asked him to sell everything he had and follow him. David, in contrast, challenges God in verse 2 to search him more deeply. Go beyond the mere external. Look all the way down. David's love for God all the way down. David's able to walk in faith of God is ever before my eyes, he says. And thirdly, we see that David's hatred of sin and of the wicked is equally as strong as his love for God. In verses 4 and 5, David echoes Psalm 1, where he said, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of God. The young ruler, David is not sacrificing by abstaining from sinful pleasures. He's not checking a list. Oh, can we honestly say that this morning? They're not just words. Fact. We see in the preceding verses that David has prepared himself for worship. In verse 2, as mentioned earlier, he's examined himself, as the Apostle Paul warns us to do in 1 Corinthians 11. We're coming to worship. In verse 6, he's washed his hands in innocence. This is a reference to the ceremonial, but he's not doing washed his hands in innocence, preparing for worship. And he's not a hypocrite by participating in the assembly of evildoers in verse 5. The word there for assembly is another word for church. He's not going for the church of God. He's prepared throughout the week to come to worship his God. His desire is to be worshiping his God in the company of God's people. Do we look forward to the preaching of God's word and the participation David does here? Are we intentional in our preparation? The piety of David that allows him to begin the psalm boldly approaching the throne of grace, in the end, and end the psalm by saying the statement, "My foot stands on level ground." David can take comfort in the fact capricious God, but rather God as a father loves his people, loves his children, and will indeed vindicate them.